My wife cheated with our best friend's husband, so I gave her a diamond pendant and divorce papers. I could never have imagined that the woman I loved, the one I trusted more than anyone else in the world, would betray me. For years, I thought we had everything. Our marriage seemed perfect, strong, loving, and built on a foundation of trust. We were the couple everyone admired. But all of that changed in a single moment. It was a seemingly innocent night, one I thought would be like any other. Little did I know, it would become the beginning of the end. A simple notification, a single message, and everything came crashing down. The shocking truth was right there in front of me, waiting to destroy the life we had built. My wife, my best friend, the woman I shared everything with, had been hiding a secret for months. Worse yet, it was with someone I knew, someone I trusted, someone who I thought was part of our inner circle. The man she had chosen wasn't just anyone. He was our best friend's husband. And when I confronted her, her reaction made everything clear. She had no remorse. And that's when I knew it was time to make her face the consequences. What followed was something she would never forget. When I first met my wife, I never could have imagined how everything would unfold. The connection we shared was undeniable. From a very first conversation, we had this spark, a chemistry that made everything else feel secondary. We had so much in common. We shared the same sense of humor, the same passions, and our ambitions seemed to align perfectly. It wasn't just about attraction. It was a deep connection. We spent hours talking about everything, from our childhood memories to our hopes for the future. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the one. It didn't take long before we were inseparable. Our relationship moved quickly, and soon we were talking about marriage. People around us saw how perfect we were together. Our friends would often tell us how they admired the strength of our bond. Family gatherings felt effortless. We fit into each other's worlds so seamlessly that no one ever questioned the depth of our commitment. We were the kind of couple that everyone looked up to, the ones you'd envy at dinner parties, the couple that had it all. I had a successful career, and so did she. We lived in a beautiful home, traveled frequently, and enjoyed the company of wonderful friends. From the outside, it looked like we had created the perfect life. And I believed it. I believed it with every part of me. But as time went on, small things began to shift. At first, they were almost imperceptible. A few nights she would come home later than usual, or sometimes she'd be distracted, lost in thought. I noticed these things but told myself they were just the signs of a busy life. Long work days, personal stress, the usual hustle and bustle of adulthood. I didn't want to jump conclusions, so I brushed it off. I was confident in our relationship. She had never given me a reason to doubt her loyalty, and I was never the kind of person to question without cause. But the distance between us began to grow. Our conversations became shorter, and the affectionate gestures I once took for granted started to disappear. I could feel her slipping away, but I couldn't figure out why. Little did I know, my wife had been hiding something from me for months. And while I was focused on the stresses of daily life, something far more destructive was unfolding right under my nose. Something that would change everything. When we first started dating, I thought I had found someone who truly understood me. Our lives fit together like pieces of a puzzle. We talked about the future with excitement. We often dreamt about the places we would travel to, the family we would raise, and the legacy we would leave behind. There was something comforting about the way we imagined growing old together. Our lives forever intertwined, living in harmony with each passing year. But as time went on, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. She started spending more time with her friends, especially with one in particular, Sophia, a woman from her work. I didn't think much of it at first. She had always been close to Sophia, and they had known each other for years. It wasn't out of the ordinary for her to go out for drinks with Sophia after work or to have long chats over lunch. But soon, I began to hear more about Sophia, almost too much. It started to feel like Sophia was a regular part of our conversations, and it made me wonder if there was more going on than just a simple friendship. I could tell my wife was trying to keep certain things from me. She would go on late-night work trips, sometimes coming back later than expected, or making up vague excuses about work-related events. I found myself questioning her stories, though I didn't want to admit it. Trust was the foundation of our relationship, and I didn't want to shatter it by being suspicious over things that could easily be explained away. It wasn't just the late nights or her growing closeness with Sophia. I started to notice that her once loving gestures had faded. The way she used to hold my hand in public, or how she would surprise me with small acts of kindness, became less frequent. We had grown comfortable in our routine, but there was a distance growing between us. I told myself I was just being paranoid. After all, life had its ups and downs, and relationships went through phases, right? But deep down, something felt off. I began spending more time alone in my thoughts, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something, a key piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. I asked myself over and over, am I imagining this, or is there something more? Then, one evening, the truth came crashing into my life when I least expected it. I had no idea that a simple notification on my phone would be the catalyst that changed everything. A notification from Facebook, of all places, would reveal a side of my wife that I had never seen. A side of her that shattered the life we had built together and left me questioning everything. It started with something simple, a harmless notification from Facebook that I barely noticed at first. But as the night wore on, something inside me pushed me to look closer. My wife, Rachel, had left her phone on the coffee table while she went to the kitchen to prepare some drinks. For a moment, I told myself it was nothing, that I should respect her privacy. After all, we trusted each other. At least, that's what I thought. But the notification on her phone caught my eye. It was a message from someone named Tom. The name didn't immediately ring a bell, but the sense of unease that settled in my stomach told me something was off. I tried to shake it off, convinced it was just a coworker or a friend from her office, someone I didn't know well. But as the minutes passed, the knot in my chest tightened. I had this gut feeling I couldn't ignore. I decided to act like everything was fine when she came back. We sat together, had some small talk, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about that message. Something was telling me that I needed to know more. My trust in her had been unwavering, but now I was questioning every little detail. I had to know if I was overthinking things, or if there was a real reason to be worried. The next day, when Rachel left for work, I couldn't fight it anymore. I grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter while my thoughts raced. What if I was just being paranoid? What if I was imagining something that wasn't there? But deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore this feeling. It was like a dark cloud hanging over me, pulling me toward the phone like it had some kind of secret to reveal. I unlocked it and found myself staring at the messages between Rachel and Tom. I froze. The words were right there in front of me, undeniable. The conversations were anything but casual. They were filled with flirtation, promises, and private jokes that made me feel like an outsider in my own relationship. There were mentions of secret meetings, dinners, and even whispers of plans to travel together. I scrolled further, and each message seemed worse than the last. My heart began to race as I pieced together the shocking truth. They had been meeting behind my back for months. All those late nights when Rachel claimed to be working overtime, the times she had canceled plans because of work commitments. It was all a lie. The guilt I felt was suffocating. I had trusted her, believed her excuses, all the while she was sneaking around with Tom, our best friend's husband. The betrayal stung deep. How could she do this to me? How could she betray not just me, but also our closest friends? But it didn't end there. As I continued to scroll, a new wave of shock hit me. There in the messages was a name I knew too well, Sophia, Rachel's best friend, the woman who had been by her side for years, the one I'd always seen as family. The two of them had known about each other's involvement with Tom and had been hiding the affair together. Sophia had been complicit, playing her part in keeping me in the dark while watching me fall for the lies. My wife and my best friend's husband weren't just keeping secrets. They were orchestrating a web of deception that spanned years. I felt the weight of the betrayal in my chest. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the double lives they had been leading. How had I been so blind? What was I missing all this time? My marriage, which I had thought was built on trust and love, now felt like a house of cards, crumbling at my feet. The hurt I felt wasn't just about Rachel's affair. It was about the years I had spent trusting the people closest to me, only to discover they had been lying to me all along. The messages between Rachel and Tom weren't just about physical attraction. They were filled with talk of love, of promises of a future. I couldn't help but wonder how much of our life together had been real, and how much had just been a facade. I felt betrayed by everyone, by Rachel, by Tom, and by Sophia. They had taken advantage of my trust, of our shared history, and now I was left with nothing but the cold, hard truth. I put the phone down, my hands shaking. The weight of the discovery was almost too much to bear. It felt like I had just been punched in the gut. My emotions were a whirlwind. Anger, sadness, disbelief. Yet in the midst of it all, there was a small, gnawing clarity. I couldn't let this go. I needed answers. And more than that, I needed to reclaim the life that had been taken from me. I couldn't just walk away from this without making sure they understood the consequences of their actions. The weight of everything I had uncovered hit me harder than I had imagined. I felt like my world had been shattered in an instant, and every emotion I had once associated with Rachel turned into something foreign. Betrayal, resentment, and an overwhelming sense of loss. What hurt the most was the realization that the people I had trusted the most, the ones who should have stood by me, had been the ones responsible for the heartache I was now experiencing. I could not wait any longer. The truth had been laid bare before me, and now it was time to confront Rachel. The idea of doing this felt like stepping into an emotional battlefield, where I could lose everything or gain back my dignity and my peace of mind. I had a million questions running through my head, but the most urgent one was, why? Why had she done this to us? Why had she betrayed our marriage, our trust, and our life together? I waited until that evening when Rachel came home, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing in the background. Her casual demeanor only fueled my anger. How could she walk around so freely, acting like everything was normal, when she had been deceiving me for so long? When she entered the living room, I sat her down, my heart racing, and the conversation began. At first, she looked surprised. There was a moment where I could see her try to maintain that calm, collected facade, but she quickly realized that something was wrong. I didn't give her the opportunity to speak first. I told her everything I had found, every message, every lie, every piece of evidence that I had discovered. Her face drained of color as I spoke, her eyes flickering with panic and guilt. It was as if the world she had carefully constructed was crumbling down in front of her, and she had no way to stop it. She started to stutter, trying to explain herself, but I could already see the cracks in her story. She was caught. She had no way out. Rachel tried to claim that it was a mistake, that she had only got involved with Tom because of some emotional distance between us. She said she felt neglected, that I had been too focused on work and had not given her enough attention. But I could not buy into her excuses. She was telling me what I wanted to hear, but the truth was right there, staring me in the face. It was a classic defense, a way for her to shift the blame onto me and paint herself as a victim. I was no fool. As she fumbled with her words, I could see how much she regretted her actions. I could see the guilt etched on her face, the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. But that did not matter anymore. The damage had been done, and I could not undo it. She had chosen her path, and now I had to choose mine. Then she dropped the bombshell that made everything worse. Rachel confessed that she had not only been seeing Tom, but that they had been involved for years. It wasn't just some passing fling. They had been having an affair for almost the entire duration of our marriage. And the most gut-wrenching part? It had all started with our best friend's husband, the man I considered a close friend. She told me how she had confided in him about our struggles, and how he had made her feel special, wanted, in a way I had failed to do. She said that Tom had been the one to give her the attention she craved, and that he had promised her everything. In her words, she fell for him. It was a sickening realization. Not only had my wife been cheating on me, but she had also been confiding in the one person I considered a friend, someone who played a key role in the destruction of our marriage. Tom, the man who had been there for me in times of trouble, had been the very one who led my wife astray. The realization stung deeply. It was a betrayal on so many levels, one that went beyond just a physical affair. It was the emotional connection, the shared deceit, and the lies that had built up over time. Rachel's affair had shattered the foundation of our marriage, and the truth of her actions was now clear. The love I had once felt for her was tainted, replaced by a bitter sense of betrayal that I could not erase. I had heard enough. I could not listen to her excuses any longer. She had already made her choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. The betrayal was too much to forgive, the lies too deep to ignore. I stood up, my hands shaking as I reached for the envelope I had set aside. The papers that would end everything. The divorce papers. I handed them to her, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Sign them, I told her. It's over. Her face fell as she looked down at the papers in disbelief. There was no more room for discussion. There was no more room for apologies. Everything had already been said. The truth was out, and now we both had to face the consequences. Rachel, the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with my life, was no longer the person I thought she was. It felt like a final nail in the coffin. The love I once had for her was replaced with anger, sadness, and a deep sense of regret. But there was no turning back. There was no repairing the damage she had caused. All I could do now was reclaim my life, start over, and heal from the wound she had left in my heart. The days following Rachel's departure were an unbearable blur of silence. The house that had once echoed with laughter, shared memories, and whispered promises now felt like an alien place. It was as if the walls themselves were mourning the loss of what could have been. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had imagined. Not only had Rachel broken my heart, but she had shattered the life we had built together. Trust, loyalty, and love all gone in the blink of an eye. Rachel left that same afternoon, taking her things and leaving behind a sense of finality in her wake. I sat in the emptiness that remained, unsure of what to do with the silence that surrounded me. The house, once a sanctuary, felt cold and unwelcoming. The memories of the vacations, the dinners we had shared, the quiet moments on the couch, now hung in the air like ghosts, mocking the life we had once imagined. It was painful, knowing that everything I thought I understood about love, about marriage, was nothing but a lie. Despite the overwhelming sense of loss, I knew I had to move forward. There were no easy answers, no quick fixes, and no way to rewind the clock to when things were simple and good. I had been betrayed, not just by Rachel, but by Tom and Sarah too. Our best friends, the people I trusted the most, had also played their parts in this drama of deceit. The foundation of everything I had known to be true had been ripped apart, and I was left standing in the rubble, trying to make sense of the mess. The first few weeks were the hardest. I found myself drowning in thoughts of what had gone wrong. The house was too quiet, and my mind was too loud. I replayed every moment, every interaction, trying to find the signs I had missed. I wonder if I'd been blind to the truth all along. If I had been so focused on our shared future that I failed to see the cracks in the relationship. But as time passed, I realized that the fault was not mine. Rachel had made her own choices, and I could not carry the weight of her decisions. Grief came in waves. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, angry and heartbroken. And then there were moments when I felt nothing at all, just a numbness that settled deep in my bones. I realized that I was grieving not just the loss of Rachel, but the loss of my own sense of security, of everything I believed about love and loyalty. It was a betrayal that went beyond infidelity. It was a betrayal of trust, of everything I thought we had built together. But with each passing day, I found the strength to heal. It was not a straight path, not by any means. There were days when I stumbled, when the anger returned, and when the memories of Rachel's betrayal threatened to consume me. But slowly I started to rebuild. I leaned on friends who had been there for me from the start. They reminded me that I was not alone in this. Their unwavering support became a lifeline. I needed to stay afloat. It was also during this time that I realized the true value of self-worth. I had spent so many years defining myself by my relationship with Rachel that I had lost sight of who I was outside of it. Now, as I began to heal, I rediscovered parts of myself that had long been buried. I took up hobbies I had abandoned, spent time with people who valued me, and started to focus on my own happiness. In doing so, I began to see that there was life beyond the heartbreak. There was joy to be found, even in the aftermath of such pain. Despite my healing, Rachel was not content to leave things in the past. She tried to reach out several times, sending texts, emails, and even calling. She apologized profusely, expressing her regret and asking for forgiveness. She claimed that her affair had been a mistake, that she was confused, and that she wished she could take everything back. I received her words with a mixture of indifference and anger. How could I believe anything she said after everything that had happened? The woman who had promised to be my partner, my confidant, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. At first, I considered meeting with her. I wondered if there was any chance of reconciliation, if we could rebuild our relationship, perhaps even start fresh. But then I remembered the betrayal, the lies, and the anguish I had felt when I first discovered what she had done. It became clear to me that reconciliation was not possible. There was no going back after the trust had been destroyed. No matter how much she regretted her actions, the damage had been done. The final straw came one afternoon when Rachel showed up at my workplace, uninvited and unexpected. She stood at my desk, her eyes filled with tears, pleading for another chance. She spoke of how she had made a mistake, how she wanted to fix things. But as I looked into her eyes, I saw nothing but the same woman who betrayed me. There was no sincerity in her words, only the desperation of someone who had lost what they once had. I told her, firmly and without hesitation, that it was over. I could not go back to the woman who had broken my heart, no matter how much she regretted her actions. I had already made my decision. I had already started to rebuild my life, and I could not allow her to come back and undo everything I had worked so hard for. She left, and that was the last time I saw her. Since that day, I have continued to move forward, step by step. It has not been easy, and the scars of betrayal will always remain, but I have learned to live with them. I have learned that healing takes time, but it is possible. I have rediscovered my sense of self and realized that I am worthy of love and respect. Rachel's affair may have been a painful chapter in my life, but it does not define me. It is just a part of my story. Now, I look forward to the future with hope and optimism. I have learned valuable lessons through the heartache, lessons that have made me stronger, wiser, and more aware of what I truly deserve. I will not settle for anything less than what I deserve in a relationship, and I will never forget that my happiness is in my own hands. If you have found this story engaging, do not forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay updated with more stories like this.